So today we're looking at a quick way to paint your Morannon Orcs. This is the 35th one I've painted, so I think I've honed a bit of a quick technique as it doesn't take me long to do them all. Okay, so I've given this model a clean up and a base coat with some Leadbelcher spray from GW Citadel range, though any spray of this colour will do. And now we're going to give it a wash in the armoured areas with a bit of Nuln Oil shade, also from the Citadel range. This is undiluted, straight out the pot, and I'm going to be concentrating mainly on the areas of armour. Okay, so with the Nuln Oil wash over dried, I'm going to give it a Drybrush on the metal areas, of course, with a bit of Ironbreaker. Could also use the Runefang steel for this, but I'm trying to not make it look too pristine. Okay, so I'm just giving that a going over with a bit of a batter brush on over. For this it's perfect, just to literally go over the top of the armoured areas, just to pick those out before we move on to the next stage. So with the dry brushing and highlighting of the armour completed, we're going to add a layer of Wraithbone to the areas, the clothes, skin and hair. So I'm just going to apply this in 2 thin coats before moving on to the next stage. Okay, so that's that stage pretty much done with the Wraithbone. Oh, I've done a bit too much of it all. Try to spread it out a little bit. So, why Morannon Orcs? Some of you may be wondering. They're about 17 years old now, aren't they? And there's a lot of tutorials out there for them, but kind of just wanted to make sure I'm still doing content for the for YouTube. And as I say, I think I've watched quite a lot of these in preparation to do the army myself, and I think there's always something you can take away from everyone's different ideas, so hopefully if I can throw a bit of inspiration your way, I'll be a happy man. If that's the case, please let me know in the comments below. And also, orcs are sort of fancy orcs are very much a constant throughout wargaming, so if you're not using any sort of ideas on a Middle-earth for Middle-earth, there's always other things. There's obviously although they're quite different, there's Age of Sigmar, and there's a lot of sort of generic fancy orcs that are appearing in plastic now, and of course you've got Warlord's recent release of, I think it's called Warlords of Eisenhower or something like that. It's not something I'm familiar with myself, but I've seen their orcs. I know they have a similar look to them as the, well, I say similar look, I suppose. I think they're closer to the Middle-earth orcs than they are to the Age of Sigmar. Big bulky style ones. So now on to the next phase, the contrast paint. So that I'll be using the good old faithful pot holder. I never attempt any contrast or now wash work without one. And I'm using a sort of older brush for this. I just prefer it. Less chance of damaging a new one. But I use an old brush for this. So we're going to now add a bit of Gore-Grunter Fur, I'll get that in focus, to the areas of flesh. I'm not thinning any of these contrast paints. Oops. Little mistake there. Nice to get that off. That'll be covered up by a later stage, as it's a browner colour. But yep. Let's get the worst of it off. So yeah, this is my favourite colour for doing the Middle-earth orc flesh. So there's the skin all completed. Another good colour to use. I'll put all these colours in the comments at the bottom, in the description at the bottom for you. But another good colour for this was for the skin was military green. I found that with a bit of a brown wash that did turn out quite nice for yeah. Only downside of that is that some of them did look a bit zombie-ish rather than orcish, but yeah, it was just, you know. Right, so next up we're going to have a bit of the a black Templar. I know they generally say go from the lighter colours to the red ones, but on these particular ones I prefer to do it the other way around. Well, with the exception of the skin, but I just like to get that out of the way because I just like the colour. So I'm just going to apply this around these areas. Again, this doesn't go too badly onto the. We'll start with the hair here. This another colour you could. Again, this is another one. You know, things like Wyldwood bark, whatever that was. So Wyldwood is another option used there. With the green, I did use some of the I can't remember the name of it. The dunes, the sandy colour contrast for that. That did look alright. So I don't know why I got the idea of doing blonde orcs, but I had seen something somewhere. I thought it seemed to go quite well amongst the rabble of them, and so I did a couple. So there's another colour. It doesn't go too badly. If you get it onto the black, it's not. Sorry, onto the metal areas, it's not going to bother it too much. So that's the hair I started off with. I'm also going to do the overshirt on top, and this little bit here. So it's an old brush, so I'm being careful to take some of the excess off. But, yeah. So once again, not thinned out in any way. I'm just putting this straight on. Although I'm using it sparingly on the actual model itself. And the rest of the right, so up next, bit of flesh tearers red on well, all the areas that I haven't done so far. I'll get a bit of that off to start with. This has been a good colour. This is one of the first contrasts I actually used, and I was very happy with it. There you go. So that's why I like this one. It does seem to get straight in and get that sort of wash and highlight. One of the ones I think is very effective as a contrast paint. I don't know if you can see it so well on here, but yeah, I'll be applying a very, very light wash in a moment once this is all finished, just to dull everything down, because they are orcs and they're not the cleanest living bunch. Sorry if there's any orcs out there I've offended. So I'll get that bit done. And but yeah, no, this is one of the contrast paints I really do. I'm very happy with. But yeah, I picked the set, the Battle of Pelennfield setup. That's where I got all my orcs from, and a few more other bits. Pretty much my entire plan 1,000 points come from that game, from that set. But yeah, I hadn't. I'd always kind of, you know, I enjoy the films, I enjoy the books, prefer the films, but that's that is just me. I think I'm more of a film watcher than a book reader. But I've enjoyed the I've enjoyed all this, and but for some reason, despite wanting to, I'd never really got around to actually getting the game. And I think it was the end of 2018, the Pelennfield set came out. I thought, right, that's it, I'll get that, I'll do it. I quite like both. I was interested in both the armies that came in the box, which isn't always the case with these box sets, but with these box games. So that's perfect. I thought, right, we'll have those, we'll have that. And that's been my intro into the game. So it's about 20 years later, and I finally got around to it. As for these particular models, I mean, they are nice. I mean, they are about how old? 2003, Return of the King came out, so they're going to be about 17 years old now. But They are good. I mean, they're different to what we workshop usually do. They're a true scale as opposed to the usual heroics, so they are a bit smaller than their other ones. I've gone over the white a bit there. I'll clean that up in a second. And but yeah, and also, you know, they're having a bit of a resurgency with the Lord of the Rings minis at the moment. A lot of the characters are coming out and they're looking very good. So, especially the Rohan bits and pieces, like, forgive me if I'm pronouncing these wrong, the Eon and Eomar and those recent ones we got coming out there. Yeah, no, I'm really excited about starting my Rohan army. The reason I'm glad I went with this one first, because the main reason being looking at it, I think, well, at least this might be the quicker of the two to do. At least it'll get me something on the table for the game. But yeah. Okay, so that's all the all the contrast that I'll be doing over Wraithbone. So all those for a minute. Next up, I'm going to have a little look at the wood areas, which in this particular miniature, that's just the front and back of the shield. So this, I'm using a little bit of watered down dryad bark. Right then, so that's both sides done with the dryad bark. I'll just let that dry off and I'll be back for the next step. Okay, so the next stage of the wood will be a Drybrush, a bit of scrap brown. Now, I probably am going to get a bit of this on the metal, but I'm not really going to lose much sleep over that, because again, it's meant to be a bit messy, a bit rusted up, so and this will be dulled down a lot in the next stage. Okay. Get a bit of that all over the edges there. There we are. Just the middle. And there we go. Stage complete. Next up, onto the leather. Right then, next up onto the leather areas, and for this I'm going to apply some grey Seer to the areas, well, to the straps, the belt, and such things as that. Right, so if I just start going around here like this. So you've got straps, two for the leg, so the shin guards, the belt itself, and then you've got on this one, the last one is just on the shield. Okay, so that's the grey Seer applied to all the strap areas. There are also some just on the pauldron there, and on the back of the shoes. And now apply a bit of a Wyldwood to the leather. Once again, undiluted. It all is unthinned. It all is on this on these models. The thing about this is, particular colour I found is that if you do go over a bit with the detailed areas, it does blend in quite nicely. Because on a couple of these at the bottom, because they're quite thin, I have slightly overshot the area itself, just there where that is, but it does kind of go quite well with the red in the recess, so that's kind of saved me having to worry about tidying that up. So that's all the leather areas done as well. Now finally, that Wyldwood is also very good for when you go around. If you notice any little white areas in the recesses around where you've used the contrast, it's good to kind of just pick them out because it kind of goes with everything. So it's a good contrast paint in that case. Right, so I'm going to add a little bit of Ushabti Bone to the teeth very carefully as I can, because this is where I might start making mistakes. And just that bottom row as well. And there's that done. Right, so next up will be a final glaze, and for that I'll be using a 50-50 mix of a Grax Earthshade and an Amiens Medium. Put this on too neatly because it's got a the armour, splodge it on a bit. So this is the final stage, and this is the one that brings it all together. Now, I don't know about, I think I said this in a previous video, I mean, I'll look at some of these models when I'm halfway through and think, oh god, this is looking awful, but it's the bits like this that really is when, this is always the stage that they start looking good. So I'll just try and splodge it on a bit there, so it doesn't look too neat and tidy, as long as it all gets a bit on it. You don't really need to do this over the, normally you wouldn't need to do this over the contrast course because they're kind of every stage in one, or that is the idea. However, it would have otherwise looked a little bit too pristine. So what have we got? Get that in there as well. Get all over the flesh as well, darken that up a little bit because I think the colour's good on its own, but as you shave the teeth as well. Try and get a bit around those little recessed areas in the armour as well, and the mail there, chainmail, and around there. One else will be on there. Get a bit thicker there because that's where I want it, make the armour look dirty. And that shin part, that's not got any yet. Shin guard, foot guard, if you want to call it. There's a gaiter on its armour. We've got a pauldron on the shoulders, and then chest plate, helmet, the obvious ones, but then the rest of them kind of escape. So gauntlet is the hand, is the glove as well. Yeah, nice one. Right, well that I'm calling done, and then up next we're moving on to the basing. So now that the wash has dried and done a good job of dulling down the colours a bit, we're moving on to the base. Now I'm going to try and recreate the Pelennor fields, which as we can see are a sort of arid ground with tufts of dead and dry grass, and we're going to try and recreate that. So to make sure there's a bit of variation on the base, I'm doing some of them with a little bit of slate, and I'm going to start off by giving that a coat of Zandi Dust, just so it matches the finish result with the ground itself. And now that the bit of slate is complete, I'm going to move on to the rest of the base, for which I'll be using a bit of Armageddon Dust Citadel textured paint. Getting plenty on the brush there, but not too much. I don't want to get any on the model. And I'm just going to apply this all over the base before moving on to the next stage. Right then, with that dried, we're on to the wash of a shade of Seraphim Sepia. Now I'm going to put that all over, including the rock, or the, well I suppose not the rock, including the slate, which is meant to be a rock. Just good coating all over. So with the shade now dried, I'm going over with the Drybrush of Ushabti Bone. I'll be doing this all over the base. I'll be adding one final paint, which will be a coat of Steel Legion Drab around the rim of the base. And for a final bit of detail, I'm going to add some Citadel Mordheim tufts to the base. I also use some arid static grass for this, but I think I prefer the overall look of the tufts. And with him completed, he can now be added to the ranks of orcs as they take to Pelennor fields and lay siege to Minas Tirith. Though he won't be winning any painting awards, this method has allowed me to quickly complete all of the models to a good tabletop standard. I'll now be moving on to some characters and to some Mordor trolls, so please look out for further content in relation to my Middle-earth project. As always, thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and please find us on Twitter @SmallWorldGames. Good night.